Have I finally cracked the code on making the new Dark Angels Codex work? No, probably not. But I did take him to a tournament, and I can let you know how that went. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another Glacial Geek video. I am Phil, the Glacial Geek, and I am coming to you today to talk about my experience this last weekend at an RTT where I brought the Dark Angels and I ran them in the Inner Circle Companion, or Task Force, Inner Circle Taskforce detachment, and not the Ironstorm Detachment. There's two reasons I kind of did this. One, I want to make the Codex work on its own and see how it goes, and working on that is, to me, and making it, like, finding the trick and figuring out like how it works and like getting the pieces together is, to me, a lot of fun. And trying to make that work is a lot of fun. But the second reason is I don't want to buy a Storm Raven. I don't have one, and I don't want to go out and buy one. So to make that work, I was going to have to do that. So with what I have, which is a lot of all the other smaller bits, and pretty much endless choice for any of those, I went about trying to craft a list that I thought would do well in a tournament. So here is my list. I will show it right now. So you'll notice a lot of familiar looks in that list. You've got your Hellblaster squad with Azrael. I've got the Apothecary in there instead of Lieutenant. We'll get back to that choice a little bit later. You've got some Terminator, Deathwing Terminator squad in there. You've got your Inceptors with the Plasma. You've got a Redemptor. You've got a Lancer. So you've got a lot of these pieces that are pretty universal to Marine lists and more specifically to Dark Angels lists. And I wasn't really kind of trying to reinvent the wheel here. I was just trying to make it work within the parameters of what we've got going on here. So there are a few things that I've got little twists on them because of what I'm working with here that I thought were kind of interesting. So, and this is also coming from talking to my friends. So Nick, thank you very much. And just getting some ideas and bouncing them off and trying to figure it out. And I'm not sure if I've gotten there quite, but it feels like I'm taking the right steps, because a couple months ago, or a couple weeks ago, sorry, not months ago, maybe about a month ago, I was coming up with the list, and the list that I talked about in my previous video about trying to come up with an idea and getting back into it and figuring it out. I went with the idea of taking that to an RTT at a different store locally. And I started to do a couple practice games. So I played a couple friends with them. That list, or like slight tweaks on that list, just to see how it worked. And in both of those games, I lost pretty badly, and I lost because I just ran out of steam real quick. So right off the bat, I was getting my points, and then I ran out of steam too quick for me to hold off my opponent before they were able to storm back and get enough points to beat me. So with the twist that I was doing on this, like the changes I was making with this, it really felt like I was finally in a place that I could do what I wanted that first list to do, but more effectively and more points efficiently. So the first change that you'll notice is I have my Ancient Terminator armor with the Deathwing Strike enhancement. He does not attach to anything. So I'm not attaching him to anything because his sole job, is to be a one model unit that can deep strike turn one in my enemy's deployment zone to deploy a teleport homer. That's it. That's his entire job. It's just deep strike back there. I can spend the CP if I need to allow him to deep strike within just outside of 3 inches. Because at that point, trying to keep every 3-inch little bubble filled by my opponent in their deployment zone is going to be very difficult to do. So I'm still working with the same kind of idea of the fixed objectives here. So I've still got my deploy teleport homers. And now I'm gonna go with engage on all fronts, which again was something that I noticed with my other list. I was running out of models too quick for me to be able to sufficiently gain engage on all fronts. So that's where a lot of the changes come here. So you'll notice that there's a lot less Terminator bodies in there and a lot more of other bodies in there. That's where I added in the 2 scout squads, because those guys are really good at engaging all fronts, because I can infiltrate them right off the bat to get into the deployment, into the corners that I need them to, into the quarters that I need them to. And then at the end of my opponent's movement phase, I can then take them off the board and bring them back on to other ones, depending upon how other models moved, how other units moved, how other units died, or where they're at, so that I can try to maximize the points that I can get for engage in all fronts, because getting those secondary points was going to be very important. And this list was very much about just like hammering those points, especially early on, and trying to get up a lead that, as I got whittled down, that my opponent couldn't catch up to the lead that I was getting on there. So his job, again, that Ancient and Terminator armor, his job, drop down that turn 1, get those points. If he lives gravy. If he doesn't, he got me those points because he would get me that engage in all fronts for that quarter. He would also get me the deploy teleport homers, and that's, you know, that's like 4 points off the bat that I'm going, or 8 points from him that I'm getting there, and that's great. So one model, a good trade off there. I was trying to do it with a whole unit and hope that they survive to try to do it the next turn. That was a waste. What I needed to do is I needed for them to just have that one guy go in there, be a sacrificial lamb, and just like be dead, and that's fine, but he got me my points. And my opponent would have to face around and turn and do something with them, with his guys in those back quarter there, or ignore it, and then he's alive again to do me deploy teleport homers again, and that's, you know, beautiful anyway it goes there. So either a one model unit that's not going to be doing anything for me other than get me points, it makes a distraction, Carnifex there, or he's just able to do what he needs to do. I've got the scouts now to go for the other engage points here. We also have the infiltrators because they're really good at just getting board control and, like, you know, keeping you from being able to deploy within 12 inches. It feels very strong. It's a very good ability to try to, like, move block your opponent and keep them from getting where they need to go. I've got a squad of intercessors there. Their job is just to kind of sticky that home objective and then kind of deal with that back quarter there as they move around and hold that quarter for engage, while also being able to move around without having to worry about staying a footprint on that objective. Because once it's sticky, and that's good to go for me, because otherwise my opponent's going to try. If I have deep strikers, they might be more important on keeping them around there and keeping my opponent away. But if they don't, then I can confront the rest of his army otherwise, and they've got that sticky and they can go out and do what they need to do, which is really great. I'm very versatile there, so I don't have to worry about holding that home objective for primaries. I've got it. It's good to go. I can move off and do what I need to without having other units that are strong and should be making me points sitting back. I did divide the 10-man Vanguard veteran squad with jump packs into 2 5-man squads. The idea being that they're still going to have the Deathwing, so they're still going to get that +1 to wound onto my vowed objective, but it gives them more a diversity, so I can move them off and they can go and shoot, and they've got the 12-inch move, and they can go and do things and still get that +1 because of the Deathwing, which is very nice. I also added in a 5-man assault intercessor squad with jump packs just for versatility, a fast squad that jumps around, can go into like a weaker unit in combat, or they could just like advance and go get into the different quarters that I need them to do what I need them to. There's also the possibility of them getting close to my opponent's deployment zone so they can get in there and deploy teleport or homers at a further turn as I start moving up the board. I did have, like I said, the Inceptors there. I did have Azrael as the big squad there with the Hellblasters. I got the Lancer. I've got the Redemptor. So I'm still got that punch that's going to be able to punish my opponent as they start to come out of their deployment zone, or keep them back there and then just kind of come up and take board control for scoring my primary points. And then that's the idea. That's the plan with my list. That was what I wanted it to do. And it did it fairly well. And it stuck around a lot longer than my previous list, because I had too many points in some other too few units, that it became easy for my opponents to just like focus down those units until they were dead, and they're not going to be able around to score me the points that I need to. So how did this work? That's the idea on paper. It looked good. I was excited for it. And I had done some different work with maybe a Land Raider Redeemer with like aggressors. But this is what I settled on. It felt good. It felt strong. It felt like I was going to be doing what I needed it to score me points. So how did it work in the actual games? So round 1, I was up against CJ and his Ynnari. So he was using specifically Ynnari. So he had some Dark Eldar Raiders that were going around. He had some Wraith Guard. He had Yvrain. He had, like, you know, those characters there. And he had some Dire Avengers. And it was a lot. It was a lot of shooting. He really was able to like winnow me down. But right off the bat, I was doing a very good job of getting my secondary. So the guy dropped down where he needed to. I did make a mistake. Turn 1, I did charge into his Wraith Blades with my Vanguard Veterans. And he wiped the Vanguard Veterans. I only killed one of them. And then that guy came back up right at the first turn. And so it did nothing. And basically, I just sacrificed my Vanguard Veterans for nothing, which is a bit of a annoyance, but lesson learned. I don't want to do that next time. But my opponent was a ton of fun to play against. I had a lot of fun playing. I got off the bat, right off the bat, I was getting a lot of points in my secondaries. I was able to keep him from getting his secondaries. I built up a pretty strong lead, but then his killing power just really started to winnow me down, take me down, and suddenly I had very few models towards the end. He was jumping around getting his secondaries, getting his primaries, and at the end of the game, we had an exact tie. So it was an exact tie. It was a brilliant game, a ton of fun, really close, back and forth. Like anything could have twisted if he had a different secondary early on. That could have got more points if I was able to not throw my guy away into his blade guard, into his wraith guard. You know, all these different things. It could have gone either way, but just a hard fought match, very fun. And I got a tie off the bat. So right off the bat, I'm just still even, not a win, not a loss, just right down the middle there with a tie. Round 2, I run into Kurt and his Tau. So he was still running because this was like when we hadn't really officially said that you had to use the Tau Codex because it was only available in like the limited edition box. So we went with, he was going with the Tau Index there. He had, Commander with some battle suits. He had some, a bunch, like the usual stuff that they have with Tau. It was very stealthy heavy. Like he was very much moving around. He had some stealth suits. He had the Ghost Keel. He had a Breacher Squad inside of the Devilfish. He had what's the missile, the missile, the Sunray, is it? Whatever one. The one that's like basically a Devilfish with missiles that he was able to use there. And he used a lot of the basically like marker lighting different units. He had the Piranhas, or not Piranhas, he had the Tetras and things like that. So going back and forth, he was doing a lot of killing. But I was getting my points right off the bat. But I didn't manage to get a far enough lead that he was able to knock me down. And it was a close game, really closely fought, but I just didn't have the staying power to kick around long enough that he was able to take me in the end there. So I lost that one. So at this point, I got one tie and one loss, but still a lot of fun. Awesome opponent. Great game. I didn't feel frustrated by my list, which is important because my previous list that I was working with there for that previous RTT I was talking about, when I was doing my test games, I noticed I was starting to get frustrated. And I think what was going on was that I was trying to find the Rubik's Cube of how the Dark Angel Codex would work with this list. And I had these expectations for how it would work, and it wasn't doing it. And it was frustrating me that I wasn't able to do what I wanted it to do. And I was feeling frustrated with what I was able to achieve with my list on the table there. It wasn't my opponents. I had a great time against really great friends, and I did enjoy the game, but I was frustrated with how the list was performing, how I was performing with it. That's why I went with Chaos Space Marines, that RTT, because it was like the last second, it was like the day before, I was just like, nah, I can't. I'm just gonna be frustrated. I'm gonna go there, and like I lost all 3 games through this random Chaos Space Marine list that I put together, but I had fun, and that's what was important to me. Was if I'm going into a tournament, I want to make sure the most important thing to me is that I'm able to have fun, that I'm not going to be frustrated, I'm not going to get salty, I'm not going to make someone else's day less fun by being their opponent. And that to me is far more important than like winning all of them. And this list, Dark Angels list that I was playing with there, so it wasn't quite doing everything I wanted it to do, but it still had the ability to do things that I wasn't frustrated with. So 2 games down, we've got a tie, we've got a loss. I'm still having fun, great opponents, great time with the list. The list is doing what I needed to. It's not like falling over. It's not falling behind. Or I guess it does in the end for some of it, but it wasn't like falling apart, I guess is more important. So I was able to do what I wanted to do. I just needed, it's probably going to need some tweaks. So going to round 3, and I'm now going to face off against Nathan and his guard. So I'm going up against Nathan and his guard. He's got a lot, like very vehicle heavy, and also very like a weird balance between very vehicle heavy and very infantry heavy. So he's got a lot of bodies, a lot of vehicles, and this is where my unit of 10 assault intercessors with Ezekiel really came in. So you saw that in the list, and this is really where it really shone, because other times they kind of like were bouncing around doing what they had to do. They didn't quite shine the way I wanted them to. This time they really shone the way I wanted them to, the way I needed them to, and I was very happy with what they did. They were able to go into big squads of guardsmen and just slaughter them. So at that point, the reason I do that is because you've got 10 guys with chainswords that have base 4 attacks here, that now have 5 attacks because Ezekiel gives them +1 attack. They've got the Deathwing keyword now from Ezekiel, so they're going to be +1 to wound on my vowed objective. And they are also going to be able to reroll wounds on that vowed objective because they get to reroll wound rolls of 1 in close combat or reroll all wounds if they're fighting on an objective. So suddenly now they're going after, they're just like beelining it for that vowed objective to just slaughter bodies. And this was great against guardsmen specifically because strength 4 AP -1 is great against guard. So they went in there, especially when you got +1 to wound, because now they're wounding guardsmen on 2s, re-rolling, AP -1, you're going to slaughter bodies. And that's what they did. They went in there, slaughtered bodies. I did struggle a little bit against the armor, especially his Rogaldorn. I basically didn't even dent his Rogaldorn. His Rogaldorn was just like picking off my units. It blew up my Redemptor before he could really do anything. My Lancer did stick around for a lot because I kind of hid him from the Rogaldorn and was using him to take out all of his other vehicles, his other tanks and stuff like that. So for me, the list was doing what I needed to. I was able to get the points that I needed to prevent him from getting his points, and I came out with a victory in that one. Again, a ton of fun, a great opponent, and a great match. I had a blast. So at the end of the day, I was 1-1-1, completely balanced, perfectly balanced, as you would say, and it kind of left me at like a very neutral place with this list. I felt like the pieces were coming together, and it felt like the pieces were doing what I needed them to get the secondaries, and for me, that was important. I think that was great for doing what I needed it to do to get me to a place where I felt like I was going to be able to compete, and it felt like it gave me hope. And this was with the points reduction, so it felt like that really made a big difference with the Codex, the point reduction that we had in Hellblasters, the point reduction we had in a bunch of different units, and it was able to like really, I felt like I was able to put the bodies on the table that I needed to make this work. I still think it needs some tweaking. Thinking about possibly again that Land Raider with the Redeemer in the middle, because it's great for Overwatch with those flame cannons. Putting inside of it, maybe put the 10-man Assault Intercessor squad inside there, so I can pull it up and then just have them just like launch out, which would be great. But for now, things do need to be twisted. But I had a ton of fun. I enjoyed playing my games, even the one that I lost, and the one that I tied, and the one that I won. All of them were great, and not because of the result, but because of my opponents, and because my list was able to do what I wanted it to, even if it wasn't quite enough in my loss, even if it wasn't quite enough to get the win in my tie. It still felt like it was doing things, still felt like I was able to score my points the way I wanted to. And it's going to take a little tweaking of decision making, a little tweaking of maybe what's in my list to go forward there. So, in fact, this is a funny story about the third match that I was going up against the guard. He did have a Vindicare Assassin, and very first turn, he gets first turn. He has his Vindicare Assassin fire into Azrael's squad there. So he decides to do the once per game shield breaker, which means no saves allowed at all. He rolls a hit of 6, which now means that he gets +3 damage to this hit, rolls a 6 to wound, and just plops Azrael right out. So suddenly my block there now I don't get the extra CP, because I never got it because I went turn 2, or it went second, so I never got the extra CP. He also took away the 4+ invul save onto those guys in the center there, took off the sustained hits, and it didn't even matter because he just like wiped me. That wiped that whole squad turn 1, but he focused his entire army onto it, took them out. Once they lost that 4 invul save, they just started falling down to all the different stuff they had shooting into there, and that whole unit was dead within that first turn. It was a heck of a blow that I was able to fight back, because the thing is, the rest of my list, it doesn't depend upon shooting things to score points. It depends upon just getting my objectives, which is great, which is why I was able to win with that. I played the objectives even though I lost like a big, hefty chunk of my hammer there. And that makes me feel like the list is probably pretty good. So even if I have that, what are the odds that the one shot, one hit, one wound would just be perfect 6s and they would just wipe him out? It was nuts, but it was a ton of fun to see it happen. It was pretty exciting. Not gonna lie. I do think I might take out the Apothecary. I really like the model, which is, I kit bashed that guy together with my what was the captain from Leviathan, the one with the shield. I kit bashed the body from that. I had like an arm from like an Incursor. I had just some upgrades through head and arm. I've got the Deathwing Apothecary arm on his right side, and I just had an Apothecary backpack, and it looks great. I really like the model, but I'm not sure if bringing one Hellblaster back each turn is as valuable as like maybe a lieutenant in there would be with getting the lethal hits, because especially strength 8, you know, there are a lot of things that getting those lethal hits would be great, especially paired off there with the sustained hits from Azrael. The pair there kind of works really well together, I think. So we'll see what happens there, trying to hopefully get that to work together. Do I think that this list that I have has legs? I think it has potential. I don't think this is the list that's going to be going forward with me. I'm going to see what happens the next time I have a tournament coming up, or the next time I have like a game coming up. I'm definitely going to tweak it. I'm not sure how big of an overhaul it needs. Still got to go back to the board there. Like I said, I think that like a Land Raider Redeemer would be pretty sweet to have in this list. I think having something like that would be very strong to be able to go up against, you know, just like bully the center there with a Land Raider that you're going to have to focus down. It doesn't matter what you got. You're going to have to focus it down. And if you're focusing on that, then the rest of my models are going around getting me points the way I need them to. And that's kind of the gameplay at that point. So we'll see how that all plays out, see what I end up going with at the end. But it does feel like this is at least a step in the right direction, and it feels good. And I'm feeling positive about the Dark Angels Codex. Ooh, maybe. maybe the first time since it came out, I'm feeling a little positive. But I'm really happy with how it played. Obviously you want the results to be, 3-0, but that's, not necessarily always the way it goes. And that's not what that wasn't my need and my goal going into this. My need and my goal going into this was to have fun, was to have a game that I could play and enjoy. And it was to be able to, to not feel like I was just like cheating myself out by taking it. And I don't think that. I feel like this list did what I wanted to do, and I need to just either do it better or do it differently or change how I get into the mindset, because it's still taking a bit for me to like twist my head around going with these set objectives, because I've been playing this whole edition with tactical objectives and having these lists that can just like respond really quickly to what the tactical objective says. And now I need to kind of like get my head around this and like twist it around and realize, no, what I need to be able to focus on getting those points and do what I need it to do. And just like plan for future turns and like be like, well, this guy's not doing anything for me this turn, but he might be doing something for me in 2 turns from now to get those points. And I need to keep that in mind the way I play my game. So just being aware of like attrition and knowing that I can't trade as easily as I could otherwise, and just like focus on going with the attacks with very specific units and then hold other ones back to like do what I need them to. So yeah, that's my thoughts. Let me know down below what you think about the list. Let me know if you have any other thoughts on how this works. Like I said, I think with the Dark Angels, I still think I'm going to stick with the Inner Circle Taskforce. I love Terminators, even though this only had 1 squad of them. I love that kind of gameplay. I do like the Vowed Objective. I feel like there's a lot of play in there somehow. I've just got to figure it out. And I just don't want to buy a Storm Raven. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. So let me know what you think down below. If you're a Dark Angels player, let me know what you've been going with, what you've had success with. Maybe, if any of this sparks some ideas for you. And then kind of we'll go from there. So I really appreciate you guys watching this stuff. It really helps. And the support that you guys give, and like it just keeps the enthusiasm going. And like I said, the whole idea of this hobby is to have fun. And that's what I want my list to do. And my list did that. So I had fun, a full day of leaving there feeling very fulfilled, having had 3 games against 3 awesome opponents, and very much enjoying the gameplay and everything that was going on with that. So thank you to all my opponents. Thank you to Spanline Games for hosting that thing. And thank you guys for watching. So I hope you guys have all enjoyed this. I certainly have. I've been Phil, the Glacial Geek, as always. And until next time, stay safe and have fun.